how to build relationships, and if you have challenges establishing relationships, maintaining relationships, you're not going to be able to build a business because it's all about partnership. And what I like about this being that 90 days, is the camera running too? Yeah, thank you. What I like about this being that 90-day boot camp is because to me that's the period of courtship. Right? Yes. Because as I say, being in business, I knew those employees after 90 days, they could hold it together. 91 days, that came crazy. It takes that time to learn and begin to learn each other and build a relationship. So be careful who you begin to partnership with to make sure it's the right partnership. Because this is what this whole boot camp is about. It's about partnership, collaborating, and going after these contracts. Now, the names, interesting. Lots of people. And this is good for us too, because this is a learning process for us on how we need to perfect this and master it. When you're thinking of your business name, what I saw consistently, everybody added management and consulting firm behind their business name. That's actually describing what your business do. So you don't necessarily need to have the management consulting firm as part of your business name. And when you're thinking of the name, when I started my business, I started out as JW Associates. And the government is driven by acronyms. So when you're thinking of your business name, think of it so that it can flow as an acronym. So my business model was my business acronym was JWA. That's how the government referred to me, JWA. But when we started growing our business, the government, my accountant told us he wanted us to go from an LLC to a C corporation. When we tried to go from an LLC to a C corporation, they didn't have that name. So that was good for me because it gave me a chance to change and rebrand who we were. Because it took too much time explaining who JW Associates was. JW Associates was me and my business partner. So when we got the chance to rename our business, we changed it to Innovative Technology Group. Hello? Does that make sense? Now that broadened, that kind of tells the story, and now we became ITG. Now, LLC as opposed to S corporation, C corporation. I'm going to provide just a high level on it. We're going to be able to bring the IRS lady in to really go into the depth. I'm just teaching it from my personal experience and having gone from an LLC to a C corporation. The difference with a LLC, it's an entity that allows you limited liability. And the purpose of setting up the different types of entities is all based on taxes. So part of you all's homework assignment for this week is that you all go to IRS.gov and do two things. I want you to begin to understand the structures and how it affects you personally from a tax aspect of it, because that's really all it is as it relates to starting a business. It's all about the tax structure. So for me, when we went from an LLC, because the accountant told us we were making too much money and we didn't have the discipline under the LLC to pay our taxes quarterly, because it's a different tax structure. So as a C corporation, we were employees of the company, automatically had our taxes taken out. But the disadvantage for us being a C corporation was that we were being taxed twice. As a C corporation, you're taxed from the corporation aspect of it, and then you as an individual employee, so you're double taxed. That's why most people wait to get to that C corporation. As an LLC, and the LLC, that's driven by members. So you're going to have managing members of that type of entity. And it's less structured than a C corporation. In a C corporation, you're going to need a board of directors, you're going to need minutes. It's going to require more documentation, especially as we all prepare to get into the 8A program. So if you've already established your business as a C, you need to make sure that you have a board of directors, that you're having that annual meeting and keeping supporting documentation as it relates to those meetings. For the LLC, you don't need as much supporting documentation. And the reason I like the LLC was because it was a pass-through to me personally. So whether the company made money or lost money, it affected my taxes personally. And again, that's when I really began to learn that being in business is all about taxes. Because, I'll give you an example. Before I started my business, when I started my business, and that was just before I got married, I had a house, I had my business. When I got married, he had a house, he had a condo, I had a condo, we built a house. I got him established in business from the house that we built together when we got married. So now that was a tax write-off as a home-based business. We both had our personal property, and then I had my business. So let's say 1 year our income was $200,000. By the time we started writing off the condo rental, his townhome rental, his loss in the business by being in a home-based business, the losses from my business, I was only paying taxes on $45,000. So that's the whole game to this, is we keep our taxes, not any means necessary, through contracts and learning this game of business. So that the other thing you need to make sure that we don't do well in keeping our paperwork. So everybody that's paid, this is part of your business record that you need to keep and book eventually in your accounting system as a tax write-off. So in essence, y'all getting this free. You get it?
Yes.
So go to IRS website, begin to learn what your liabilities will be as that CEO. No one told me that. Because once you start winning contracts, once you start gaining employees, now you're in a whole different mode. You now have different types of tax liability. So you have to make sure that you file quarterly reports, which are called 940s, 941s, and you don't want to get behind with those, because I'm telling you, those 940s and 941s showed me crazy. I had no clue what that was. But that was part of my responsibility in being in business. And what 940s and 941s is a record of the amount of money that you paid, that you took out of that employee's taxes and paid on behalf of that employee to the IRS. So that's how the W-2s match what you're submitting to IRS. That's how they reconcile their books. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question. You were saying you started out as an LLC, then you found out that you were bringing in more income, then you switched over
Correct.
to a C corporation. So, and I know you told us to go and do the research and look to see what's best for us. But if you're a small business just starting out, you suggest you start out as an LLC?
I recommend that you start out as an LLC because you can always go from an LLC to a C corporation, but you can't go from a C corporation to an LLC. Your whole goal is to get the best tax liability, minimize your tax liability. So everything that you're doing, these meetings, when you're driving up here for this, that's a write-off. So your documentation needs to be key. Clocking your miles. It's all business related, right? Because by the end of this year, we all going to be business owners, right?
Okay.
And right now, how many get ready to tax down 9,000 strong doing business with the government? Okay, so we got about what, 7 in here? So that's 830. I got 830 to get registered by next year.
Amen.
So stay focused. It's not easy. If it was, everybody would do it. You have to be committed to the process. Understand that it is a process. You're not going to, at the end of this 3 months, go out there and think you're going to win no $2 million contracts. That's not realistic. What I've seen consistently as I've counseled with business throughout SBA is that it generally takes 6 months to a year to get these contracts. And understand the game, because this is the whole purpose of this. Right now, we need to make sure you understand just how to run a business. With that being said, I need to go over to my other class. I wish y'all would have a good class.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's an absolute honor to be here. Once again, just like last week, I told you I'm following. But because I just want to transfer everything I know to everybody. They're passing out some additional handouts, and I want to apologize for this morning. But we're still kind of, and I totally take this morning, but we're still trying to get a sense of what the logistics overall. And this weekend, Newburgh has their outreach ministry, so it's some big stuff on what services the things are going to be available. But we get that worked out. But I wanted to start off because I already had some people from last week was telling me some of the things that they tried to do, and instead of me just kind of throwing things out, what are your thoughts on everything from last week, or what were we able to do over the course of the week? Anybody want to share with some of the things that they tried or did?
I tried to do the next code.
Okay. The next, she said she tried to do the next code for your company. What does your company do?
I don't know yet.
Oh, for your actual firm.
Yes.
Yeah, your firm. Remember last week for those we had the cops that I was saying pick out your top 5 next code that you did. What we call is one and number 1.
Well, I want to do filming and photography, and I didn't see any next code for that.
Let me say interestingly, that's interesting. You asked it. One of the ones I do all the time. Actually, they had I saw somewhere that where they had changed the word to amusement. And amusement was the word that was the substitute for entertainment. That is the thing that I'm starting to, just like I apologize, I'm quickly trying to learn to follow what's the subsets of how the things are going through. So amusement was one of the things I was in.
What was it under? Because that was under entertainment. And that was under the 2012 next code.
And I tell you what, and actually I wanted to do this as an exercise too, and because it actually helps with something I want to be able to do. Okay, by each next code, what I want each person to do, if this is one of your, if this is one of your 5, I want you to stand up. I want you to stand up. I want y'all to look and see each other. And then what I'm going to try to do next week is I'm going to try to get badges so that we can all put our next codes on the badges. So that way we will be able to see each other and identify each other by those next codes and how we all want to part of that. And then we're going to get back to this review and the Q&A and all that good stuff. And I got a lot. I forgot to do the blank sheet Y'all, yeah, exactly. We're gonna take care of that immediately because that's such a valuable tool. Is there anyone that ever considered writing a book? Anything? Great. If you haven't, I'll tell you, this little simple technique, I've helped people write books and film and all that other stuff. So if you don't mind, stand up for each one. Okay, so there's 20 next codes. So we're gonna do this real quick. Is there anyone interested in agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting? That's one that's live. Okay, make sure you take a look. I'm telling you, this is very relevant, right? We're going to go after every single contract and government contract. Great. And here's the thing too: the black farmers. Anybody ever done anything with black farmers, right? From what I know now and understand, if you would have understood these things, I worked with Georgia Community Development Corporation organization back in the early 2000s, and they were trying to help black farmers. If I had any clue about this, we could have done so much more for black farmers, even though they did indicate he got some money. So which one of those three was your agriculture? Okay, we'll definitely look into that and explore it. That's interesting. I'm working on a project where they're trying to export chickens from the United States to South Africa. So the agriculture piece, but now they expanded. We started off with that, now they got the whole USDA involved, the Department of State, and a bunch of other stuff. So stick with me on that, we'll figure that out. Okay, next. Mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction. Yes, they stand up. That was one of the top 5. So again, for those who do not, you see the people that you need to partner with. And real quick, what's your experience in it?
I've worked with Georgia Power as a millwright, fixing generators, all those different things that deal with coal producing power.
Love it. Let me tell you. See, remember, because again, what Paulo's key thing was is not just about what you do, right? It's about what your team. We're all each other's team. We're in each other's clearinghouse. And I was really hoping, I was like, please let us have one of those. All right. So utilities. Great. Stay up for a second. It's in your top 5. Okay, so utilities. Everybody again, kind of take a look. You got it. All right. So next, construction. I think everybody like 5-6 seconds plus. All right. I know we're getting some of it on camera, so that'd be good to get a picture. Okay. Manufacturing. Good, great. And you know what, eventually, when we start doing the exercise, we're going to start breaking them out in groups. The PSPT, anybody remember what it stands for? There you go. You see in your primary standing, right? You see in your primaries and secondaries, so we're getting all those components in place. Thank you. And then, let's see, we did manufacturing. That was manufacturing, right? No, manufacturing. Oh, that was manufacturing. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Wholesale trade. Good. Let me tell you, when we get you registered on Sam is going to ask, are you interested in import and export? My brothers and I, when we were younger, our whole goal was to have a business in every city that had a football team and a basketball team. So we can go check on our businesses and go to the game at the same time. When I did the import and export thing for my company, I selected every country in the group. You might as well go see my house. So that's the whole thing. So when we go through Sam, y'all should be good to go. Retail trade. Check it in that. Okay, great. Outstanding. Transportation and warehouse. Good. Absolutely. They have a shortage of truck drivers and everything now. They're bigger than that, right? All logistics and everything else. I got a ton of I just love logistics. So information, IT information. You see, now here's the other thing too about these people standing up. This is not just a government contractor. We're technically helping you with business development. That's what this is really about. Government contractor is just a portion of what it is that we're trying to get you involved in. So there's nothing stopping all of us from hiring each other's services, working that out. You're going to have a whole portfolio. The whole idea is that you got to generate revenue. There you go, right? And even while I'm bringing it up, one of the things that happens that Paula talks about all the time, these companies get these 8As, go through the whole 9 years, and then don't know how to actually survive on their own after their 8As. That's because inside the government space, it's not the same type of sales and marketing, right? So it's so easy to get comfortable. We're gonna always work on both sides. This class is going to begin. We're gonna make sure that we keep each other in the whole process. So that's great. All right. And then that was finance and insurance. finance and insurance, need some babies. Yep, so that's good stuff. Yep, finance and insurance, and we need insurance, obviously. Real estate, rental, and leasing. Matter of fact, Stacy would love y'all. She was just in here. We actually are partnered up with the Empire Board of Realtors. We know, they have some challenges, but and also NAREB. If you're not familiar, Empire Board of Realtors is the Black Trade Association for Real Estate Brokers, and then NAREB is the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. So all of us are literally looking to partner. Matter of fact, they're looking to be one of the first ones to bring on sponsors. Where we want to take this thing now. There's no reason. You already got the experience. You understand contracting and all those different things that are already made. It's going to be, and oh, by the way, the federal government is the largest single building owner in the world, because all the federal buildings that they have. So we'll definitely explore those. Okay. Professional, scientific, and technical skills. Yes. I'm standing on that one. Yep, I love that. Matter of fact, I bought my Papa Science magazine. Let's see, management and management of companies and enterprises. I'm a consultant. Yes. All right, that is fantastic. Administrative and support and waste management and remediation services. Outstanding. Again, just fortunate. Some of my part, I've had a chance to work with so many of the environmental people in Atlanta over the years. Matter of fact, I got somebody who says like I need to know. All right, educational services. Good stuff. Great stuff. Great. Outstanding. Healthcare and social assistance. Outstanding. Arts, entertainment, and recreation. That's what it should be. Arts, entertainment, and recreation. Outstanding. We've got some entertainment attorneys in New York who work with a bunch of stuff. So it's pretty good. As a matter of fact, we start with athletes. We just met with John Wilkins, Dominique Wilkins' brother, have some stuff going on. So it's just a lot of that going on. And we got great expertise. I feel small right now in comparison to what the overall talent. That's a good deal. I ain't intimidated by that. That's good stuff. Good stuff. A combination of food services. All right, great. And other services except public administration. I've been meaning to click on it. We'll take it.
It has a lot. I went on a site that showed you what each one of them are, and it breaks it down to each thing. And it had hairdressers on there, all kinds of different things.
Yeah, that was a contract out earlier this week for a hairdresser. We got to follow the show. And it was like $300-some thousand with highlights.
Yeah.
Somebody said you put highlights in like military women's hair. Yeah, it's crazy. I tell you, it's government. Every single thing we do. Okay, yeah. All right, public administration. Good stuff. Outstanding. I don't know, am I the only one that feels down with it? Outstanding stuff. So, we can't study the next enough. And just being around Paula, she a couple months ago, about a month and a half ago, she started talking to me about how Congress sets it. Congress actually has committees set up for the next year. So that's why the voting power that we possess is beyond just voting for the politician. And we forget when we vote for someone, that person votes on our behalf. So you never really stop voting. So the goal is to start getting everybody to understand that we want to start tracking those committees. And I was hoping to have the projector today. Maybe I think they're still trying to get the projector today. I was going to at least show you what the folder system is. Hope about every class I'll figure out some way to kind of do it. And because the folder system that we have set up, I actually was going to show it to you this week. We're going to go over next week. We'll get to that. Okay. Any other feedback, questions, anything you kind of tried to learn from last week? That makes so we're not getting something. Somebody meet. Did you? I'm getting you. What let's go to the next one. Yeah.
Let's try to do a particular thing. Show all of the and show that.
There you go. Anyone else try it? Did anyone else try the PPT?
Yeah.
Does it work?
Yes, it has.
I just want to make sure somebody doesn't get it. Does everybody remember what the PPT was?
PowerPoint.
Yeah, put that behind it. Do the same thing for PDF, docs, and Excel files. Working on something that has some financials in it. Oh, there's a ton of stuff to put out. Most people don't even realize that they have time to get there.
So I remember Ms. Paula saying it's not about you. So if you don't have a particular skill set, you can go get people on your team that have that skill set.
You are one big staffing company. You are monster.com. And it's not about you. I'm going to show you the, everyone have a blank sheet of paper now? Do you? Okay, let me go ahead and show you what's the deal. And it's actually the problem passed out. Actually, let me explain too. When anytime I'm in a meeting or people on the team is in a meeting, we do this mapping, we do vision mapping. So I mean, literally, we write the entire time that we're in a meeting. So when Paula was talking, this is what, and I kind of condensed it in, but this is what the wall version looks like. So if you've never seen storyboard, process mapping, I mean, this is just our version of it, right? And so we use a lot of symbols and different things, but when we're sitting at the table, we use a technique called 16 blocks. And I'm telling you, this thing has worked for everything. I literally have used it from South Africa to Abu Dhabi and Dubai, all that good stuff. And as simple as it is, people are always fascinated with the fact that we organize what they're thinking too. All right, so and you got a printed version of this, but I intentionally try to show people this is how simple organizing is key to leadership. There's no way around. I mean, organizing is thing in preparation. That whole thing I was talking about last week. Okay, so what you do is you take the blank sheet of paper, fold it in half 4 times. So you just go one fold.
Did everybody get this week's handout?
Behind the desk, one. And then we got one on the left. And then fold it in half again. You got 4 folds. There is no set rules to how you do this little process. Okay. And then fold it one more time. You're gonna have a little block like that. That's all we got is 16 blocks. That's small. You fold it again, we'll knock it up. But once you have this, then all you do is unfold it back out. And let it when well, first I'll work back. But this little block, 16 blocks, there is no set way to do this. The largest group of people that I had doing this at one time, I had about 8 of my people all in the room at the same time. Now one of ours was the same, and I'm going to explain how this works. Each one of us have all different techniques. But here's the thing, on meeting. If you're having a meeting about your business, about anything that you're trying to accomplish, every single idea matters. People take it for granted. Everybody tries to listen for the highlights. Those are the details, like guaranteed. If you don't write them down, you're going to come back to them. And that's what usually happens, right? You meet, you decide you're going to meet again, right? But a lot of times in the sessions that we have, because of the way we use this little drawing, is what happens is we pretty much capture all that in the first round. We're like, okay, put it in this section, this section. So what happens is, as people are talking to it, I did it up here this way, but each one of those things that Paul talked about would have been in its own block. Right? And then I literally turned her opening into a script. And literally, one of my guys is in there with her now. And he actually did this for the 3s and 4s, and they were able to they're going to be working on something. But why am I doing that? Because we got to replicate Paula. Otherwise, it's going to get a lot of people, right? So every word she says is the script. So that everything, that's why when I'm around her, she's like, boy, these paper companies want to live now. So the whole idea is everything she's ever said to me, I got some samples probably in the back. I mean, every single meeting, every word she's ever said is in one of these formats. Now, for those who are interested in writing a book, I'll tell you how I helped a couple people write some books and a bunch of stuff, project management and everything. What happens is, if you got an idea for a book, don't worry about putting them in order. In each one of the blocks, put your thought of the main themes you want in that book, right? Just a brainstorm. matter of fact, I'll give y'all something. We'll do this. Because you have a business plan, and we were actually going to do it on the business plan, we're going to do it live. So what you do is, in the first block in the top left, I want you to write, you can either put the initials or you can write the words. I want you to put executive summary. We actually going to go through that. We're actually going to go through this today. The first block, top left, executive summary. Right? Then, next is elevator statement. How many people have heard of the elevator statement? That's a good showing. For everyone else, what it is they say if you got on the elevator on the first floor with someone you always wanted to meet or someone you always wanted to do business with, and you hit the 44th floor and they hit the 43rd floor, you now got 43 floors to build your case, right? They call it the elevator statement. But you say what it is you want. And I had an investor in one of my companies before. He told me, he said, you pretty much start the conversation off with, I'm gonna make you some money. And you pretty much gonna get somebody's attention, right? And how you gonna make them some money. So your elevator statement is that summary of your executive summary that says how I'm gonna be beneficial to you. So we're gonna come back to this. So your executive summary, elevator statement, and then your company summary should be in the next box. Company summary. We're gonna talk about this one. This is actually part of the exercise. Executive summary, elevator statement, company summary. You got products and services should be in the next box. Now, on the map that you were given with the business plan, is that circular diagram that you're given with the business plan. It's each one of those. But I'll just give you an example of this. This is how it works, right? So you start off general, and then what you do is you take a second sheet, or you take a sheet for each one of these. So the executive summary would have its own 16 lines. And you'd be surprised, about 4 sheets into it, you're not gonna have them top. I can guarantee you. Especially, I do front and back on mine. One of our guys, he doesn't do this on the back. So I know that sounds odd, and people may have some kind of note-taking technique, but I'm just giving you an idea that this is one of the techniques that we use for taking notes and organizing ideas. So if you ever meet with it, you'll see all those goals on paper. We don't have an actual version of it. But one of the best examples, this guy showed it to him like on a Friday night. I came back on Monday. He had his entire book mapped out by different color sheets of paper. Each chapter had a color, and he had a whole different series. He had every stalk written out. He had where he wanted his pictures and everything else, and literally within a month he had his book published. I mean, so it's a little technique. And then I'll tell you where else we use this. We use this in GED classes, life skill classes, because you can put one problem in at a time. You can kind of break down the overall thought. So the reason I went in with the exercise is I'm gonna go back to the review. And there's key things that people want to say. If you want to, you can use this technique. We're not saying you have to. We're just saying it's one that we use all the time, so you'll see it all the time. Any quick questions, anything too, and then any additional feedback from last week? Good. All right. It was actually we're going to cover the PSVT and a couple other things. Today is about thinking like a boss. That's the whole thing. And last week was about self-exploration and talking about your company and the next goal. And we know everybody's going to be at different stages. And so, and a lot of this is just open engagement for the most part. But how many people have heard of C-suite? The C-suite. Yeah, and politics says the same thing the first time. I'm like, you made all this money, they don't say that kind of stuff in government. But the more that I've been engaging with her and engaging with her clients, is that her clients, literally, she got one client makes $10 million. When we first started talking to him, he didn't know either. But he's trying to grow. So now he's bought into this process. But they call it the C-suite. And so inside of this, what you have is, you got this little drawing right here. You have and you know, I take this for granted. And one of the first times I did this with young people all the time, they very few don't even know. Literally, very few know. But we've had adults, different classes that didn't know. What is this diagram? Org chart. It's the org chart, right? If you work for someone, you are governed by this all day. And in the military, it's the chain of command, right? You're governed by constant, recognizing the influences that influence us. But this is not a place not to be realistic. Because, again, the ship does not dictate the ocean, right? You got all these things swaying you back and forth, taking you different places. So much of this is that in thinking like a boss, you got to envision where you're trying to go, right? And how to get there. So there's 20 slots on this page. And so we're gonna start by breaking down. We're gonna start by breaking down these slots, and then we're gonna come back to the business plan. We're gonna talk a little bit about the business plan components too. And there's some other things, a lot of other things I want to share with you. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you did make the copy for the annual calendar.
Yeah.
Good, okay, good. We're gonna do that exercise. Because again, so much of being on the executive teams and executive board. This is the thing about executives. Executives usually are not concerned about the work because the work usually is a process. They're usually concerned about the direction. Because at the end of the day, business is about market share. What's illegal in business, but it's a board game that most people love. Monopoly. It's actually illegal in the United States to be a monopoly. That's why they made a game about it, right? No, seriously, if the government even thinks for a second it's about to become a monopoly, what do they do? Lit you up. Because your dominance is just ever present, right? What's interesting is when they split those companies up, the top shareholders usually make more money than they ever made before. Because they actually get a piece of all those companies, and then they get their recipients. So the goal is to become a what? And then let the government break it back up. So the idea is, there you go. And seriously, if you look at it all throughout history, and I was saying it last week, and I was thinking about trying it earlier too. Because I think if you tell me where you were born and what year, what part of the country, I can tell you what your parents did for a living if I want to give you a shot. She had her hand up first. Okay, where were you born?
Here, Atlanta.
Atlanta, what year?
79.
79, okay. So now, let me tell you, the thing about it is, 1979, Carter was president. So during that time period, when Carter was president, we had energy crisis. But in 79, Reagan started running for president. And so we had the Iran crisis, we had all the different things. Atlanta, Mayor Jackson was doing an outstanding job of making Atlanta the hub for Black America. So literally, so we had the 5 fastest growing counties, starting about between 78 and 92 during that time period. The sad part is, we're lower than the Mason-Dixon line. Your parents are from here, then there's only a couple of things they could have done unless they were deeply in education. They either worked for city government or they worked directly in just overall general services, doing it overall. Where am I close? What is it?
My father, he was a body mechanic, and my mother was a bookbinder.
I'm telling you, there's no magic to this. The whole thing of why you even do that exercise is the conditions repeat themselves, right? And I listened to the video, and someone actually knew the answer to this question. I heard it on the video. When I said what happens the first Friday of every month, someone knew the answer. The job support. Why do you know that?
You see that breaking news?
But what is smart is not what you are, smart is what? Every single time. So the amazing thing about that is, in the interview class, I still want to do that thing where if we got more than 35 people, how many people got the same birthdays? But seriously, those patterns exist. Part of the way I'll tell you how that process is no different than the TSRC. What does the TSRC stand for? See, so there's only 16 blocks, right? Because last week, and that's what I realized afterwards, that I was saying all this, and I was like, okay, they had no way to track it. So there you go. There you go. Yeah, there you go. You can't go wrong with this in your notes. This is not college. You can cheat all day long. I expect you to use the resource, Google it, do whatever, right? And then I call it TSRC, but the reality is quarters, geography, is demographics, and finances. But the T is time. The T is time. Talking quarters, exactly. You've been getting beat up by it the whole time. You didn't do it. Your company determined your pay, determined when they were going to lay you off. They just decided last week. That was actually decided 2 years ago, and they knew the merger was going to happen, they knew this was going to happen. We are the ones coming in blind. And then we shocked. Oh my God, there they are. Dude, the signs go around you all day long. The signs go around you all day long. So the time, right, it's quarters, talking quarters. The space was talking geographic, region, location. Now think about it, I answered that question that way, right? 1979, what was going on? Geographically, what was happening, everything else. The most complicated processes to do in this, whenever I do the exercise, is black folks that were born in New York and Chicago. Because New York was such a well-established economy, in Chicago too, so there was a gap between black folks being rich and black folks being poor. So, but below the Mason-Dixon line, I pretty much get it every single time, unless you're a military base. So, space, that's what I'm saying. You see how you just covered that? Geographically, right? Geographic, the relationship, the arts, relationships, that's demographics. Look for the demographics. In profile, but you give up this data 24/7. You know you can go online on Google and put in a phone locator, and it will show you everywhere your phone has ever been. Yeah. Apple just turned it off. They just say, oh, we didn't show it unless you requested it. But they can say they don't do it. So, you know, so that whole thing of how we're being tracked and everything that gets in place. So, in other words, they look at the profile demographic. They know you fit this is your behavior. And someone talked to me earlier this week, and they were like, they changed my credit rating or something. I said, oh, yeah, no. I said, the banks are now notorious for this now. If you all of a sudden were shopping at Neiman Marcus, and you start shopping at Walmart, they will cancel your card. Yeah. Because they're like, oh, you in trouble. They're like, oh, why would you buy no more? So you might not be able to pay your credit card. Why don't we just cut your limit off and make you pay? Yeah, they got you figured out. So again, we may not like that, but this is the reality. This is it. If you're the CEO, see, let me tell you, this is the thing about being a CEO of your company. And by the way, what does CEO stand for?
Chief Executive Officer.
Chief Executive Officer. Is that C and that O at the end, all those stuff in the middle is going to change, right? But when you're the CEO, you're responsible for direction. You're responsible for saying, where's the wind going? The ship does not dictate the ocean. So you got to be good at reading the ocean. Not looking around at your ship talking about how pretty it is. You got to so you got to know how to sail that ocean, right? Did a big tanker or something just get wiped away? Yeah. Just a couple weeks ago. Last week, in the hurricane that came through, 30 people lives lost. You know, at the end of the day, you got to recognize there's a force greater than yourself. And then you got to account for it. That's the third word, right? The third P. So, you know, all that goes together. The last thing, TSRC, is cost. Everything has cost. You know, we do not like that either. Every single thing is a debit or credit. How many people are familiar with a general ledger? Great follower. She'd be really excited because let me tell you, she got clients making billions of dollars. They look at their financial statements, but they do not look at their general ledger. And sure enough, I kid you not. But I kid you not, I won't say no names. One of her clients, I started a session similar to this, and I was like, okay, let's look at what your next quarter objectives are going to be. And he was like, well, how do I determine it? I said, well, let's look at your historical records. I said, I just need to look at your financials real quick, and I'll help you determine. He sent me his financial statements. I was like, why you sent me that? He's like, well, that's what I get. I was like, no, I need to see your general ledger. I get $18 million discrepancy. Yes, he had never looked at his general ledger. Never looked at it. For those who don't know what that is supposed to track every single cent in your company. Every single cent, right? So if you do not know how to read a general ledger, I don't care if you don't like numbers. And now they're holding CEOs accountable. It used to be you could get away with it, blame it on somebody else, but they're like, no, you're supposed to have signed off on your financial statements, right? And there's obviously a lot of people know a lot more about it than me, and I'm going to be around you every chance I get. Because your financial statements is not just a report of your current status. It helps you see your patterns. It's supposed to help you see efficiencies and deficiencies and all that good stuff. So in your 16 blocks, again, this is the way you get it. For practicing the 16 block, general ledger, PPT, general ledger, PPT, or taking an accounting class or something. I'm saying because every single debit, credit, and here's the thing in accounting, debit and credit does not mean the same thing. That just tells you what size the account form is. Left or right. But it does not tell you it's a negative or positive. So your brain is not going to explode. Your brain is not going to explode looking at all this stuff and you're like, all this white picture, showing me all this. I was like, oh. And I'm her CEO, so I tell all the time, I'm gonna send you a report every week. I said, we're gonna go over this stuff. This is not gonna be something. Those are your controls. And I cannot stand that word because it's a byproduct of management, right? So that's one of the things. So time, space, relationship, and cost, or again, it can be quarters, geographic, demographic, financial. Make sense?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Those are some of the core components of business. Those are the core components, and then we'll go through the business plan piece too. Something like this though, and I made it up, and that's what let's do. All right. The other thing too. Okay, now the org chart at the very top. What's your name? And under your name, at the very top of the org chart, put your name and CEO. Yep, you are the CEO of your firm. And if you want to, somewhere on the page, if you decide on what your company name is, put your company name. Is it the block? Top block, yep, very top block, very top block. On the org chart, like that, top of the name. How many people know who Lee Iacocca is? Even when I was a kid, I was like, so, he actually was responsible for inventing the Mustang, and later became CEO of Chrysler. He started off Jack Welch. Jack Welch, he, right? So all the components, I'll tell you. And then, does anybody know, I don't know her name, but the president of American Express? CEO of CEO of American. No, Xerox. I'm sorry. Xerox. So the president. No, but that's one of the reasons I was talking about the Bloomberg. Oh, that was the other one I did have a question about. How did you download the Bloomberg app? Yes. I'm talking about. Hey, have you had a chance to check it out? I'm telling you. Didn't I tell you? Man, I'm telling you, you can't go wrong. Free advice all day. Millionaires, billionaires, they get us doing 16 blocks. Take every single number. Did anybody hear anything particular fast when they got a chance to listen to this? Yeah, I kept hearing it in passing this week too, but it's just in case there was something that stood out. Okay, now, in the C-suite, that's what I started talking about, the C-suite. The C-suite are people who are not just responsible. Again, this is the way you have to think about government contractors. It's not that you yourself are responsible for the task. Stacey Morrison that was in here earlier, I hope you don't mind me saying it, has won this in the last 5 months, or I think the last 5 months, won over $900,000 in contracts. Got a window washing contract, 2 contracts with the CDC. She's a subcontractor on some other contracts and all that stuff, right? But she's the president of the Empire Real Estate Board. She started off in real estate. She's doing washing windows, doing some of the CDC and all that. Again, it's your perspective on how you want to lead and manage, right? But you got to have a C-suite mentality. And that's all the C type of people. These people are not just responsible for a task. They're responsible for the direction of the company. Where are you really trying to take this particular company? And then you got to have some sense of, again, where you want that TSRC. Every person you know needs to answer that. What are the titles that's in the C-suite stuff you just tell me? Right? Okay, so now, to me, and it's not necessarily in this particular order, but to me, this is the way I think it would be if this idea. The first block under is C-O-O, to the right. Yeah, the first one to the left. The first one to the left, that first 2 rows is your C-suite. And then we're going to talk about each one. What does COO stand for? Chief Operating Officer. Operating Officer. I had a law firm that was a client of mine, and they brought me in and were like, who's doing that now? And can you do that for us? That was one of the key things that were missing. I said, you don't need an office manager, you need a COO. I said, you need someone who can talk to the office manager and say, okay, you're responsible for the task, but I'm responsible for growing. I need to be able to understand what y'all are doing, what are the SOPs, what's the processes. Matter of fact, that's a good thing to write in that same box. SOP. What's the SOP stand for?
Standard Operating Procedures.
All day long. All day long. That's the other thing about the 16 blocks. I'm able to take those 16 blocks and turn them into a standard operating procedure. When Paula first saw me doing the 16 blocks, she was like, you just made my standard operating procedure while I was talking. I'm like, yes, ma'am. It's all about efficiency, productivity, trying to cut costs, right? The difference between cost and revenue is profits. So, that's the thing you want to drive. So a typical COO is not an office manager, right? This person should constantly be looking for ways to make your business run better. And so, for right now, you're probably playing all these roles. Bless you. You're probably playing all these roles. Anything else? Has anybody ever met their COO? And look how small the hands are. That's tragic. I'm saying that is tragic. But that's the point, right? They're way up, way down here. So now we can flip that, right? Yeah. They have a whole magazine dedicated to about COO.com, something like that. They have a whole magazine too. I just love processes, so even though my background is IT, I love processes, so COO is a natural fit. Now, if you got a COO, then the next thing to me you need is a CMO, It stands for
Chief Management.
Chief Marketing Officer. Marketing is responsible for sales. Marketing is responsible for message. Now, if you want to, in your 16 blocks, you can follow this along in the 16 blocks too. And because all the extra little side note stuff that I'm going to say about each one. So you have marketing, marketing in the government space. Excuse me. It's more about presence. In other words, what happens is that the contracting officers, they got a whole stack of people that's calling them or contacting them, right? And you want to be one of the first people they think of when they need something. And literally, the contracting officers and the COTARs, or those contracting officer and technical representative that I'm learning. Oh, by the way, how many of you got the vocabulary list? If you didn't get the vocabulary list, I didn't have your email address. And so that was mine. Make sure we get your email addresses if you didn't get the vocabulary list. Oh, and then somebody did email me back and said it went into their junk mail. So I tried to blind copy everybody, but I guess that sent it to you. So you might want to check it. And yeah, you might want to check your junk mail if you haven't checked it. I sent it out Thursday afternoon, and so you might want to check the vocabulary list. And I actually got a couple copies up here, but I don't have enough to hand out. And that's the other thing too. We're gonna try to send out more forms and stuff during the week. But your chief marketing officer is going to be relationship building. Both the CEO and the chief marketing officer in the government space is going to have to go to some of these government events. It's good for them to know your name. It is what it is, right? But in business, it's extremely competitive. Extremely competitive. Marketing nowadays is social media. Social media is only good if you're selling directly to the public. If you are a B2B, what's B2B? Business to business. So B2C, business to consumer. Yeah, if you're a B2B, that's a different dynamic. If you're a B2C, then social media is great. But for B2B, that's a little bit more challenging, unless you're using LinkedIn or something like that. So there's a lot of aspect on, the first thing that comes to mind for me now, marketing is mergers nowadays. Companies just say, getting all the marketing, we're just going to buy you out. But that's another component of the Bloomberg dynamic. Okay. The next person to be in line for this is I'm intentionally got this person is middle. And it doesn't have that I know it doesn't have a seat, but it's legal counsel. Legal counsel. And by the way, too, we're constantly finding people, recruiting people with these talents. And we're telling them, look, for now, they're going to fill these gaps, right? And so we've got a guy with some financing, marketing, we got different people here. There's no way to kind of set it for the calendar of what we have. So we're going to be bringing speakers in as they are available. So we want to start getting y'all to know these people. Just like if you were here the second session, when the guys came down from DC, that was a great example. That was actually a marketing thing. If you've got a chance to change numbers, and if you eventually are going to do something with the Office of Personnel Management, that's going to be one of your contract. That was the top guy at one of the top government agencies. Remember, he had the A+ and all that good stuff. Good people. They've been consistent about following up with us, trying to find out what our needs are. So that was actually, for those that were there that day, that was the beginning of the marketing overall. But legal counsel in this space, every single thing you do in business is a contract. And give you an idea what's an NDA? Non-disclosure. Do me a favor. Under that legal counsel, you're going to have a lot of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. You're going to have non-competes. The government itself will tell you all the legal, from the contracts and stuff I've already looked at, we'll follow them. They'll tell you what all the legal constraints is that you got to be. Teaming agreements, that's a huge component that's going to be under there. Teaming, you have TEAM, teaming agreements, when you do your joint ventures, those kind of components. Your LLC, literally how you structure your company technically is legal counsel. I think LegalZoom, I had to be paid one of the programs years ago, and to be honest with you, it cost more than what my returns were charging. So, but I mean, either way, if it fits you, you can use it, take advantage of it. So, whatever's your overall strategy. If not, then I'm telling you, Paula is constantly dealing with people who have, attorneys, so they're going to be part of our network, and we're going to try to make sure everybody's kind of service if you don't have a lawyer. And they announced, I don't know how many people listen to 1380 on the radio. It's the Black Talk radio shows. Yeah. And there's actually an event that they have that they're bringing all these lawyers in, so you might want to check that out. 1380 is tied to E103. I hope it's not today. I don't think it is, because they were advertising it this morning.
There was one about judges or something like that.
Yeah, and the attorneys is free. Yeah, they got a free event.
Today.
Oh, yeah. What time? Is it later today this
I
morning?
thought it was like, it may have been like 12.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't mind somebody Googling it and finding it out. And, but hopefully they'll have another one, or they'll post all the information. And, actually one of the attorneys used to be one of my clients that I was talking about earlier. And, they give it a free thing. They said any legal issue you have, just bring it in there, you know, share it with them. They're gonna talk to you for free. So, which is great. Hopefully they'll start doing a lot of those. Next is your, CIO. What is the I?
Information.
The Chief Information Technology. Because nowadays, well, technology's gotten a lot cheaper, but it used to be one of the biggest costs that you had. One of the biggest objectives that the CIO would have is that, I was very fortunate. I worked for 2 small companies, so years ago, and was like one of the top 10 people that, you know, the top 10 people. So I literally dealt with these people every day, you know, as far as having to report data and stuff like that. But one of the biggest responsibilities the CIO had was not fixing your computer. That was the last thing. You know, but making sure that they bought the servers, got any costs, made sure that the system ran right, security, all those big things are going to be tied in place. And so there's no way around it, because you're dealing with the government. And some people in here, oh, well, let me tell you, if you can get top secret clearance, or you're another person that's going to be down in it. But there's a lot of security involved with how that comes into play. So there's no way around it. It's another one of those things. And again, Paula, amazing resource. I just can't say it enough. She literally got people that takes a lot. You know, if you had one before, from one understanding, you would do well. And so, yes,
Would that fall under a TWIC card?
see, I need to check that out. I'm not sure, but my understanding is if you had one before, you probably can get another. And so there's a whole set of contracts that, one of the gentlemen that's going to be coming, Swin Rhodes, when I did the mapping session with him, he was saying that those contracts, some of those contracts don't even get posted. And so he was like, there's a whole process to how those contracts kind of happen, take place too, by itself. And so I think I just had a secret of okay, so CIO, your Chief Information Officer, again, they're understanding the landscape of technology and how technology is changing. Again, that's why I love Pop Science Magazine. Anyone that's seen the 3D printer?
Yes.
I'm telling you, yes, in Micro Center and all these places now have. If you haven't seen it, you can go online. If you ever wanted to invent anything amazing, literally, you just plug it into the computer, it prints it out. They now are 3D printing cars. About a year ago, it took them 14 hours to do the car, but now they got it down under 4 or 5. So if you haven't seen it, I'm telling you, check it out. 3D printing just by itself is, especially if you're going to be a product company or something else. Yes, you can print it home. They got the cost now. I think I was at Microsoft yesterday. They have 3D printers for like $300 now.
Yeah, they have Sam's Club.
Sam's Club has it
Sam's
too.
Club has it.
Sam's Club said, oh yeah,
Yeah,
so I
they
did
sell
too.
it.
Yeah, I'm going to get my dog. So yeah, this is good stuff. 3D printing is outstanding. There's all kinds of tools, technology, and stuff. Oh, and even under this, you've heard of Fiverr? Fiverr.com. Fiverr.com. Pretty much anything you want done, $5. $5. It's hard to believe. You like seriously $5? $5, $25, $30. FIVER. Yeah, B is in big. Yeah, it's all kinds. I mean, it's just fantastic. Huh? So what? Yes, 2 E's. FIVER. Spell it right. ERR. Very good. You hear that? Literally, somebody had their logo, and actually we replied to get our logo done on too. She's showing right now a logo that was designed for $26 on Fiverr. This is what our college friends had. So logos, print materials, website stuff, tool stuff. Yeah, it's fantastic. And then now on the other side of it is ELANCE, ELANCE.
Yeah, that's a good site.
Yeah, I love E-Lance. Matter of fact, I'm currently, literally, I hate to even say it, I was up at 2 o'clock this morning talking to some Indians about some stuff. But guru.com, Guru.com, guru.com is another consulting thing that's done. I've actually, E-Lance, yeah, E-Lance is another, I hadn't looked at it in a while, so it used to be, yeah, E-L-A, Elance.com. I hadn't used that one in a while, but Google I've used now 3 times. Elance outsourcing everything. You put in what you need, all these bids come back, and then all of a sudden, you're in there. I'm telling you, I had a web application, like a web software program, not a website, that I had made, and every price I was getting in the United States was over $30,000. And Google.com came back and said $7,000, 2 months. It was even under the timeline and everything. I tell you, they did a great job. Great job. Google.com. So, it is. You know what? It's a rich. So you got, there's no around it. You're gonna be up in odd hours, talking to them, kind of thing. So, but if you ever decide to do it, then we'll get.
How do you protect intellectual property?
They because the website has it set up to maintain its credibility.
Yes.
Then they put it into the agreement, and so once it's in the agreement, then the website confirms the agreement too. As long as everybody, the website technically is a broker, and so they broker to make sure that everybody's on board to be able to do it. So both times they gave me the entire code, and so and that was part of why I was up 2 o'clock. I was like, okay, we take all that there.
There's a site called Llama, which is a strange name. Llama. They are local, actually, they're in Tucker, Georgia. Actually, American owned, but they do IT services all over the world. And they have artists that does the same thing. That when you put in your request, the artist will bid on your project. And what they give you back is amazing. What is it? Llama, like a llama.
What's the site called?
And that, as a side note too, because we have some people interested in writing books. How many people have heard of Lulu.com? Lulu.com, tell you, I actually got some self-published stuff out there too. LU.com is one of the best self-published sites. They don't charge anything until somebody orders it. They get their good when somebody orders it. You put your materials out.
What's the
there.
website?
LU.com. Lulu.com. So in other words, right now, we outsource as a CIO, right? We outsource everything. Okay. There's a whole list of this C-suite stuff now. They have a CKO. Anybody know what the CKO is? Yeah, the CKO is probably, if you've ever been laid off, you probably got laid off. And CKO is the K is knowledge, Chief Knowledge Officer. Because what people don't realize, and I'll tell you, I've been self-employed since 2002, and my very first company out of the box was a knowledge management company. And people had no idea what it was. And I'm telling you, I actually mentioned it last week. If you Google knowledge management, you're like, it's just like government contract. You're like, what? How can this be this big and I don't know anything about it? But what happens is, you work, you queue, tapping away. Oh, there's somebody who's evaluating everything and putting it in their computer, right?
Yep.
So what they're doing is, you and 20 other people that do your same job, they're going, oh, let me see the pattern of what they're doing. Oh, we don't need 10 of those people. They're like, because we see the pattern, right? And so they create a software program to replace you. That's typical how it goes. I'm serious. So the knowledge officer is not like the CIO. Remember, the CIO is responsible for getting all the equipment, making sure the prices are good. But the chief knowledge officer is going, okay, how do we get the knowledge base? So I used to tell people to help them understand knowledge management. I said, they hire you to do this, but they know you know this. So they intentionally set up your job in a way to pull all that knowledge to one place. Pay you only one. Pay you only one. Yeah, you don't even realize it. You're like, oh man, I was glad to get that meeting. This it is what it is. I mean, this is not a kid's game. Yeah. Well, I was just saying there are other titles. You got you can't have a CSO, which is Chief Sales Officer. I mean, so sometimes when you see the C-suite, it's enormous. But I was going to finish with what I think are the strongest ones. The last one is the last block. Let's see, I feel like I. Okay.
Five of them.
Yeah, no, we shouldn't have five. The CEO is at the top.
COO, CMO.
Don't, I'm sorry, don't write CKO. I was just showing it as a reference. That's my yeah, I'm sorry. That was wrong. And I thought about it for a second. I was like, but the last one is actually your CFO. I'm saying you go to jail, this person don't do their job right. So I'm intentionally putting them last because they're waiting on everybody else to do their job, and they're trying to help everybody else understand. The CFO will come to CEO and go, man, you have a budget. When one of my first times having an investor, I turned in my financials off all the time, real big financial projections, and the guy did one thing on one page, he came back and said, your payroll is right. He didn't even look on the payroll page.
Wow.
He looked on another page, ran some portions. He was like, the moment your operations is over 20% or 26% of all your costs, you're paying your employees too much. There is actually a formula. So that's why when you deal with investors and different people, they're like, oh yeah, that was great. And I do it for people now too. People come to me with these great ideas. I was like, well, I love this idea. I said, okay, don't bring it back up to me. Because the person won't sit there and keep talking about the idea. I'm like, we gotta make money off this thing. So I'm like, okay, so I love the idea, don't bring it back up. What's your number? In a moment, and that's what they mean when they say, what's your number, right? What is your financial? And it is actually that TSRC. You've got to be able to understand those projections, what's happening, what you think is happening, especially if you're a brand new company. Because, and that's actually how they do stocks. When companies do their annual reports or quarterly reports, what they're saying is, this is our financial goals. Now, when they don't meet those financial goals, everybody panics. Bloomberg, right? I think it was earlier this week, Walmart stock. Why? Why did it go down? What did they say?
Somebody's serious.
Yeah, but see that's them trying to compete. See, absolutely, but it was a competitive edge. Amazon numbers went up in areas that Walmart's numbers are not supposed to go up. So they were like, something's wrong, right? They were like, why is everybody switching over to Amazon? So they were like, okay, Walmart didn't meet its objectives, and Amazon's numbers went up. Oh, Walmart sale. And the people were like, hey, that stock ain't gonna go up no more no time. So they may adjust it. Somebody may come out back again with quarter reports. But that's what the company is declaring. That's what the CEO is declaring. The CEO goes, we are gonna lay up. Oh, by the way, too, a company lays off employees, stock goes up or down. Up. Now think about it. I fired you. I fired you, and my stock went up. Why? That's right. In other words, the CEO, I said, I didn't need y'all. We just cut $100 million in salaries, and we now are a leaner company to be able to do. These are real businesses. There's no way around it. That's extremely competitive environment. And I love the debates the other day, and Bernie Sanders was talking about enterprise. My mom called me out because we keep the politics thing, and I said, can't eliminate capitalism. I said, there's just no way around it. The moment two people traded an apple and an orange, that was capitalism. Barter, in other words, in any kind of exchange, you just have to have a central banking system. That's a whole plan all by itself. So yeah, and right now the Fed is holding the rate. Donald Trump even said yesterday. Anybody see this? I'll tell you, this stuff is not passing things. Donald Trump had the nerve to say that the Fed is holding the interest rates because they like Obama. He said, no, they just waiting to make it hard on the next person. Right? That's what he was saying. I'm like, the Fed doesn't bother the president. The rest of the world is listening to what the Fed says. The president has to worry about what the Fed says. So, but again, if you're not taking the time to understand your business is relying on these type of decisions, it's different things you can do. That's what the goal is. So that's the kind of stuff we have to understand how those waves come out. And one of the biggest ones, again, the jobs report comes out the first Friday of every month. And then literally, if them numbers don't go too far one way or another, it's like they expected, you have whole industries that are now just panicking, right? So, oh my goodness, what's going on? So, okay. The C-suite level, any questions about any of that so far? Everyone? All right. Somebody want to use the internet? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Oh, yeah.
Power with your phone.
Yeah, I was about to say, yes, ma'am.
Starting small business, and you purchase somebody's own.
Great. great. I was actually waiting on somebody to ask that kind of question.
What's the question?
Did everybody have a question? No. Okay, see, question.
As a small business, you need somebody for every one of those categories.
What's the answer? What? The whole thing is, you gotta think like a CEO. In Bill Gates' book called Business at the Speed of Thought, Bill Gates, that's what he talks about. He said, if you're not thinking international, the day you open your business, you are obsolete. He said, you're obsolete because you are in a global economy. You're in a global economy. I don't care how small your product. Your company's now making a killing off of selling, doing nothing but selling products online. If you watch Shark Tank, you know, they come to the morning and go, we had $5 million in sales. They're like, what did you sell? They're like, all online. Right. So, you know, you got to think of with the access and the tools that you have today. It's more about the mentality. So you get yourself ready for these things. You're technically all these people right now. So, you know, until you feel that slot, and that's what you should already be thinking in your head, who's going to feel these slots? Who's going to do what? And now, the wonderful part about it is, Paula called in the government space, and he definitely write this down, they call these the contingency hires, right? These people's bios and resumes are people who can get contracts on forever and a day, right? Forever and a day. Remember, you saw different people standing up, right? Yeah, the next coach, you saw that next coach thing. That person has certain strengths or attributes. See if they'll be your COO or CIO. All my IT, not information people stood up to be your CIO. You know, so you got all the logistics people can be your COO. I'm a logistics-minded person, so for all the so we have the collection. Yes, ma'am.
I think everybody's problem is, can you afford, how do you afford to bring on?
You know what? I had a real great mentor in the field years ago. You call him. And he used to get on me all the time. He's like, Mike, man, which is where I learned from. He's like, where you learn money? He said, man, because you have value. You package value. Money's a byproduct of value. Yeah. Money's a noun. It's not even an action word, right? It happens after something else happens. So the whole idea is that you start packaging that value. What's your value? Your ability to sell your leadership, your ability to sell your intentions, your effort. I call it gates. Just abilities, talents, effort, and skills. You got to do one of them. Effort is nothing else. Where they came from, my niece came in one day, she's like, oh Mike, you always know what you want to do. And I was instantly mad. She's like, that ain't true. I was like, that is nowhere near true. And I was like, don't try to treat me because I've practiced all my life like I got some special gift. I was like, I had effort. I realized when I was younger, if I didn't have nothing else, I could get up every day and do my best. That's effort. And that turned into a talent. And now it's like a gift and all these other things, right? So you learn to package that effort. What is that real effort that you're going to have? What is that real dedication? We did the life map last week, and I said, okay, if all your goals are not the things you think about once every 5 minutes or once an hour, where's the problem? In the 4 places you spend your time. So, you know, you start shaping. It's not a perfect size, but I don't know anybody that's just, but I'm just saying, you find ways to expand your effort, and then you share that story and that volume. And sometimes you can't. Remember that support circle? In a lot of situations, like with Paula, I'm just thankful to be her COO. I got my own company, but I'd rather be her COO, right? I know where that train's going. It ain't that I know where my train going. And I always say, tell her that. You know, like, know your goals. I'm like, know your goals. What are you really trying to accomplish? That's what last exercise was about. When you get the lifetime goals and those short-term goals, if you didn't have business goals in there, and I meant to say that last week too, by the way, on that life map, those check boxes, I got this out, y'all left. You were supposed to check off the areas that you're concerned about or that you want to expand more into your life about. So if you still have them, then check off those areas, because it's as much about personal coaching as it is about executive coaching. Somebody else had this one.
Could you use the acronym for GATES again?
Yeah, GATES, gifts, abilities, talents, effort, skills. Oh, by the way, yeah, I was fussing at my niece that particular day. Because I was like, quit being late. I was like, you got effort. Because her thing is, you don't get motivated until you got to get more talent. I'm like, whatever, get up. I think that's something up. Gifts, abilities, talents, effort, and skills. Gifts, abilities, effort, talents. In the beginning, these folks got to do some work. Let me tell you, it seems like, okay, physical labor seems like it's the hardest part of the job. Making a bad decision is the hardest part of the job, right? So in other words, these people are responsible for decisions. They're the decision makers of the business. Remember, they set directions. So I can guarantee you, these folks are more apt to have a heart attack than the folks that work for them. Right? Right? I had a guy years ago, and he had a big company, and all of a sudden his company started going down, and he was like, man, I had this nice Mercedes driving around. He said, every time I would even stop at a traffic light, he was like, I was panicking, because I didn't know how I was gonna make payroll.
Wow.
You got people you're responsible for and everything else that you're responsible for. And if you're in this for the long haul, you ain't trying to get in this and kind of corrupt the whole process of the system. I don't know if I said it last week, but I tell you, I used to do GED programs in jails and prisons. I'm like, I will speech on you. I'm not going to jail. I'm not doing my time, your time, blah, blah, blah. So we're accountable for all those little details, right? The person doing their job is like, I did my job and went home. What are these people doing? Research, constant negotiating, constant doing all this other stuff too. You know, no one likes playing Monopoly with me because I started negotiating with people from the very beginning. So in other words, there you go. See, hey, we got plenty. But seriously, if you're not a good negotiator, it is what it is. Go to an Asian place that sells something, or go to an Indian place, or something like that. And what's funny is, I'm cheap. And my brother was with me. And I went to the clearance section literally about a month ago. I went to the clearance section at Walmart. I said, you know, you can get a negotiate on everything that's clearance. He was like, what are you talking about? I said, watch this. I said, what you want? He started putting everything in the cart. I went up to the front. I said, how much will you give me for all of this? And the lady said, I'll take about $50.